All right, let's talk about a phrase you've probably heard a million times. It's one of the most famous quotes out there about data. But what if I told you the story you know about it is probably wrong?
And there it is. You know this one. It's powerful, it's a little cynical, and it's absolutely unforgettable. It just perfectly captures that feeling we get when numbers are thrown at us. But where did this brilliant, cutting remark actually come from?
Now, you might think you have the answer. I mean, the origin story has been told and retold for over 100 years. But the real story? Oh, it's way more complicated and, honestly, a lot more interesting.
Okay, so let's start with the version everybody knows, what we'll call the Disraeli myth. This is the story that has cemented itself in popular culture, and it involves some very, very famous names.
So the reason this quote got so huge in the United States is thanks to one person, the one and only Mark Twain. He absolutely loved the phrase, he used it in his writing, and he basically gave it the huge platform it has today.
But here's where the whole story takes a fascinating turn. Twain always said the quote came from the famously witty British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli. And you gotta admit, it sounds like something Disraeli would say, right? There's just one tiny problem. There is zero, and I mean zero, historical evidence he ever said or wrote it. People have looked everywhere, his speeches, his letters, his books, nothing. It's just not there.
So wait a second. If Mark Twain was wrong, and Disraeli never said it, then who did? This is where our little bit of trivia turns into a full-on historical whodunit.
So let's put on our detective hats for a minute. The trail for the real source takes us back to the late 1800s, and that's where things start to get really interesting.
Turns out, instead of one clear author, we've got a list of suspects. You have figures like Sir Charles Dilke and Leonard H. Courtney, who were using very similar phrases around that time. But here's the real kicker. A lot of writers from that era just called it an old saying. That suggests it wasn't some stroke of genius from one person, but more like a piece of folk wisdom that was just kind of floating around.
And check this out. This is a huge clue. There's an even earlier version from 1885 that follows the exact same pattern. Liars, damned liars, but the punchline is experts, not statistics. This is so important because it shows the general idea that cynical three-level ranking was around before it got attached specifically to numbers.
So the true origin is this fantastic puzzle with no single neat answer. But you know what? Maybe finding the person who said it first isn't really the point. The bigger, more important question is, why has this phrase stuck around for so long? Why does it still hit home today?
And to answer that, we have to look right past the witty punchline and really dig into the phrase's deeper, timeless message about information itself.
See, here's the real heart of it. This phrase isn't just about trashing all data. No, it's actually a pretty smart call for us to be critical thinkers. It's a reminder that statistics aren't these pure, objective facts that fall from the sky. They are figures that are built, constructed by people. And people have motivations. So how are they built? Well, think about something like an unemployment statistic. First, someone has to make choices about what to even count. Are you counting only people on benefits? What about people who've just given up looking for a job? That one choice completely changes the final number. Second, there are biases in how the data is collected. A phone survey might miss younger people, while an online one might miss older folks. And finally, you've got motivations. The way the number is presented can be shaped to tell a certain story. A government might frame it to look good, while an opponent uses the exact same data to make things look terrible.
And all of this brings us right to our world today. I mean, in the age of big data, social media, and a 24/7 news cycle, this warning from the 1800s has never, ever been more important. We are literally swimming in a sea of statistics every single day. They are incredibly powerful tools used to shape what we think, what we buy, and how we see the entire world. A single percentage point, just thrown out there without context, can start a panic or launch a multi-million-dollar trend.
And you can see all sorts of groups rely on statistics to push their agendas. Politicians will cherry-pick data to make their policies look good. Media outlets use shocking numbers for those clickbait headlines. Advertisers use survey results to convince you to buy something. Activists use them to show how urgent their cause is. Now, it's not always malicious, but it does mean there's almost always a perspective, an agenda behind the numbers you see.
So here's the most important takeaway from all of this. The spirit of that famous quote isn't to make you a cynic who just rejects all data out of hand. That's actually dangerous. The real goal is to empower you, to turn you into a critical, thoughtful consumer of information. So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. The next time a headline or an ad hits you with some startling new statistic, just for a second, pause. Arm yourself with 2 simple, powerful questions that get right to the heart of it all. Who's doing the counting? And maybe even more important, why?